Hello, welcome. Welcome. I'll call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, April 5th, 2023. It is 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is the monthly meeting of the Revere Human Rights Commission. Usually we have a hybrid meeting so that it can be as accessible as possible. However, because we don't have clerical support this evening, it is just in person. There is no Zoom option, so we apologize for any inconvenience. We will hope to be back on that format next month. So let's take a roll call. Just, excuse me, give me 1 second. I have an old attendance. Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
No, but that's okay. I think I know it. So we have Reverend Bogut Min is absent due to a conflict. Chief Bright?
Here.
Thank you. Chief Callahan is en route. Dr. Garcia?
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hosseini, I believe, is en route. Commissioner McGee?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Mukabir has a conflict. Commissioner Pish?
Present.
Thank you. I am Chair Grillo Mara, present, and we currently have 9 active members and 5 is required for a quorum, so we do have a quorum present. And we usually begin our meetings with a land acknowledgement and then a little bit of time to settle in. So I will share my screen. And let's just take a moment to sort of recognize the land that we're on and honor those who were the original overseers of the land. We would like to acknowledge the traditional overseers of this land on which this meeting takes place, as well as honor what this land means to the culture and traditions of those who originally occupied this space. In addition, we extend a welcome to any Aboriginal, Native American, and/or First Nation people joining us today. And on this next screen, let's see if I can make it, no. There's a map of Massachusetts, eastern Massachusetts, and it is showing that Revere is on the land of the Pawtucket tribe. So let's just take a moment in our own way to remember and honor the original overseers of this land, as well as all those ancestors that followed. And now we don't need to screen share anymore. And we usually begin our meetings with just a few moments or a minute or two of some quiet time to become more present in our body, heart, and mind. And many of us are participating in the 21-day Racial Equity Challenge, which you'll hear more about as the meeting goes on. And the theme of this year's challenge is belonging and othering. So as we take a few moments now, why don't we just settle in? So if you need to adjust your body, what's it like to be in a position that feels alert, dignified, yet relaxed. Maybe take some slower, deeper breaths if that's helpful. It's a way to bring the attention and the energy down from the headspace, down into this present body. And just recall a moment, any moment in time that you felt seen, heard, recognized. Deep into your being. It may have even been beyond whatever you were saying or how you were acting. That sense of belonging. We're all wired for this sense of belonging, to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged in our basic humanity and dignity. Just recognize how important this is for all beings. So if we can widen our attention outside of the I, me, my project, and this is true for each of us, even if we look different, even if we have different backgrounds, cultures, ways of speaking or being. We're all here living and dying together. May we treat each other with more kindness, more understanding and tolerance. Simple moments to pause can be very powerful. To slow down, to hear, to listen, to be more present. And so hopefully we're in a little bit more of an embodied space, an open-hearted space as we continue along. So the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the March 9th monthly meeting. The draft of those minutes have been on the HRC webpage since shortly after the meeting, and the commissioners were given a copy of those. So please, if anyone has questions, suggested comments, or we can approve those minutes.
Madam Chair, should we read our mission statement?
Thank you, Commissioner Pish. Yes, before we go on, we forgot to read our mission statement, so let me just pull that up. Now it's on the screen, hopefully in nice big font. There. So please unmute yourself and join me. The mission of the Revere Human Rights Commission is to promote human and civil rights and empower all people of Revere by ensuring that everyone, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized, have equitable opportunities, equal access, and are treated with dignity, respect, fairness, and justice. Thank you so much. And we can pause the screen share, but I am going to pull up the vision that we approved at our last meeting. We might want to state this as well. It's now on the screen. So there we go. So if you'd like to join me once more. This is the HRC vision. A thriving Revere where all community members live free of racism, poverty, violence, and other systems of oppression, and where everyone has equitable access, opportunities, and resources, as well as a sense of belonging. Thank you. And let the record reflect that Vice Chair Hosseini is now present. Thank you again, Commissioner Pish. So, returning to the agenda, number 5, the approval of minutes from the March 9th meeting. Does anyone have any comments, questions, suggested edits, or we can move to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McGee.
Motion to second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. And next, number 6, there is time for an open forum and opportunity for questions and comments about agenda items. There is no one here at this time in the gallery. There are no guests, so we will move on. Number 7 is the monthly acknowledgements. I'd like to just, before I open it up for some of the members to speak, I'd like to just make some acknowledgements. So we do have a cultural awareness and events calendar on our HRC webpage. And so some of the awareness months that are acknowledged there, I want to share those, and then I'll have some members speak a bit more. Even though it's April, Ramadan began March 22nd and lasts into April. April is Autism Awareness Month, Arab American Heritage Month, Scottish American Heritage Month, Celebrate Diversity Month, and it's Sexual Violence Awareness Month. It's also a time of Passover and Easter, so those are just sort of ones that are coming to me off the top of my head. I apologize if I'm missing any. And I'd like to turn this over first to Vice Chair Hosseini to maybe say some remarks about Ramadan.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Madam Chair. For those who don't know what Ramadan is, it is a month-long commitment that is done by Muslims all around the world. It changes every year because we go by the lunar calendar rather than the Gregorian calendar. And essentially, we start fasting from sun up, which is around like 5 o'clock. And we break our fast at around 7 o'clock, which is when sunset happens. And we don't eat and we don't drink, but essentially the whole point is to learn how to overcome obstacles when you're not eating and when you're not drinking. Obviously, when an individual doesn't go a day without eating, it is kind of hard, but the whole point is to be patient with yourself and with others. And when it comes from a philosophical angle, the whole like mentioned before, you're supposed to be patient with yourself and others. You're supposed to treat everyone with kindness, no matter what situation you are, and you're supposed to approach it, the situation with peace and kindness. And ultimately, it's kind of like the 21-day challenge. When you do certain things for a whole month, it starts becoming a habit. So even after the month of Ramadan, those ideas of being kind and being respectful for everyone should continue on even after the month has ended. I believe the City of Revere is having an upcoming iftar night. I don't know for sure when that will happen, but it will be happening within the next 2 weeks. I believe it will happen next week. So be on the lookout for that. It is $5 to pay and get food, but it's just it's a time for everyone to break their fast and just celebrate each other's presence and cultures all at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Hosseini. And I do believe it's Friday, April 14th at the Senior Center, and I also believe that it might already be sold out. which is sort of exciting. But, you could check to see if there are any open seats. So it is at the Revere Senior Center on Friday, April 14th. And next, I'd like to invite Commissioner Pish to speak about Cambodian New Year, which is coming up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Cambodian people celebrate Cambodian New Year in April. The Cambodian New Year is celebrated from April 14 to the 16th of 2023. And it's also known as Khmer New Year or Chol Chnam Thmai. And the celebration consists of different rituals, just like other celebration, foods, family gathering, friends, and community. So it consists of 3 days. Back home, the country kind of closed down for 3 days, and everybody are celebrating the New Year. It's a big celebration for Cambodian people. So the first day of the New Year is called Maha Sangkran, which means is believe that it was the first day of creation. And we are inviting all the angels to come to our home. We're cleaning our house, we illuminated our spaces, and to make sure that we're inviting all of the angels to come and bless our home, and also give us luck and fortune. The second day calls Virat Vanabat Day. Virat Vanabat Day is a day that we are really thinking of the people who have less fortune, such as people who are homeless, who are sick, not healthy, so we pray for them, and then also it's a day of doing charity. And the third day we call Tngai Lang Sa, which means the day that most Cambodian children or adults giving bath and wash our parents and grandparents, and in return for blessing and good luck for the future. And this year's celebration in Revere, if you would like to learn more and participate, there's a celebration at the Wat Tana Rangsai Temple. It's on 75 Thornton Street. So there will be a celebration on Saturday the 15th. I would say from 9 to at least 3 p.m. and the same for Sunday. And if you would like to explore Cambodian food and taste Cambodian food, there's a restaurant on Shirley Ave called Tmada, and it's on 144 Shirley Ave. And it's a great opportunity to support the local restaurant, Cambodian restaurant as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Pish. Next, I will invite both Dr. Garcia and Director Correa. And actually, I apologize that I did not acknowledge, she's not in the roll call because she's not a member, but Director Correa is here with us at the meeting. So I want to note that. So I will invite Dr. Garcia and then Director Correa, whichever order you two want to go to, let us know about the 21-day racial equity challenge that's going on.
Good afternoon. I'll be happy to talk about the 21-day racial equity challenge that we have in the district right now going on. It is something that's been promoted by Food of New England, and certainly I believe they are in the 9th or 10th year promoting this. And Revere has decided to embrace the cause this past year. It's been a very interesting learning journey. The goal really is to build a community making sure that people really engage in conversations, in dialogues, on issues involving equity, race, ethnicity, and other other topics. Every morning there is a topic that comes. It's all, as Madam Chair just referred to you to these at the beginning. This year, the emphasis on the inclusion. There's a lot of interesting topics there. We ask people to read the prompts every morning. Then there is a Padlet where they can go and write their reflections. There's no wrong or right. The goal is really engage people in this process, empowering people, making sure people are part of a community that is reflective, that understands the harm that racism has done in this country, and engage in a meaningful conversation that will lead to the increased knowledge base on issues of racism and equity and inclusion. It has been a very interesting journey. We have, we are expecting that people who have registered, even those who have not been registered, they can still join the cause. All they need to do, if they really want to be part of it, they can email me. I will be glad to forward the email with the topics and prompts that arrive every day, either to Claudia or to me. So it's been, we have all the municipality employees engaged in this, the Human Rights Commission, and many others. So it's if you want to really improve your knowledge base of equity, you have a chance for 21 days to participate in this journey. In addition, there will be 3 occasions where we're going to have an hour and a half discussion that will happen this Monday, the 18th, and the 24th. So we're expecting people to, there is a Zoom link that I sent to everyone. We expect people to log in 3 o'clock this Monday, and it's a nice summary of all the topics that we've been engaged in, and there will be an agenda, there will be some questions, and we will have a good discussion. A good way to engage with each other and really discuss issues of equity and inclusion. Claudia, you wanna?
Excuse me, Director Correa, I just want to add that this began Monday, the 3rd. Also, in case you don't know how to reach Director Correa or Dr. Garcia, you can always just go through the HRC webpage, and we will direct your contact information to one of them or both of them. Go ahead, Director Correa.
Thank you. Well, actually, Dr. Garcia has covered pretty much everything. One thing we wanted to share is that, interesting enough, we have some employees that are participating of the challenge, and they come to our office to have conversations around the stuff they're learning, and they're reading about. So we tell them to go to the Padlet and actually write up their thoughts. Like Dr. Garcia said, there is no right or wrong, but it's good to see that people are actually participating and reading. We also have questions from some of the employees. Hey, we did it last year. We're glad you're doing it again. Some others are asking, well, is this mandatory? No, it's not. It is voluntary, but definitely the feedback has been more positive around the stuff that people are learning. So we see that there is engagement, and we continue. We're pushing everyone to definitely participate. It's a great opportunity to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the other commissioners have anything to ask or say? You have to put your microphone on.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to see all of us going to the Padlet and put our reflections there. So it's a great way to really engage in something that's meaningful to all of us and that really matters, that are relevant to all of us. So if you have a chance, it's not mandatory, but at the same time, we're building a community. So you have a chance to go there, put your reflection there.
Thank you. you
Madam
want-
Chair, can I?
Yep.
I would like to thank Director Claudia and Dr. Garcia for hosting this 21-day racism challenge. Last year, I was able to participate in a discussion. It was very fruitful. A lot of people had shared their ideas from the articles and information that they have learned. It's very, very informational, and I encourage everyone to participate in a conversation and go to the HRC webpage and learn about each topic of each day. It's very informational, food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pish. Yes, it's really such a great resource to have. There's so many different resources, easy, short reads, short videos, really, a lot of information that many of us have not learned or have not been exposed to, so it's really, really helpful. I'd also like to just let the record reflect that Chief Callahan is now here. And any other comments before we go on to the next topic? Okay. Okay. So next is number 8, the HRC group norms or shared agreements. I will share my screen in just a moment, but before I do that, I'd like to give a little context. We had, Director Barros was with us from January to June of 2022, and we had started to get into this process of creating group norms or shared agreements for this board. And then, of course, that got a little bit disrupted, and then Director Correa joined us in January. So we've had 2 mini retreats where we have got together for team building, for us to sort of, under a new director, to be able to sort of finally come with these group norms or shared agreements. So these that I'm sharing have come out of those team building mini retreats, and we'll see if there's any additional comments or if we want to approve these, for this group. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So is that large enough for people to see? So it's broken into two categories. The first section is atmosphere and relationships, which includes to create a brave and safe space where everyone's input is welcome and valued, to establish trust and get to know each other in various ways, personally and professionally, to respect all perspectives, listen without judgment, even if you disagree, keep an open mind, hold each other accountable with care and compassion, assume best interests but recognize impact, and honor one another, challenge ideas and not the person. And then under communication, there's a few more. Speak from your own perspective rather than trying to speak for others. For instance, I feel, in my experience. Ask clarifying questions without fear. Seek to understand and move the conversation forward. Respect confidentiality. Stories stay in, learning goes out. Equity of voice. Monitor your airtime and allow space for all to share. Be prepared to have uncomfortable conversations and to be aware of body language when we're having uncomfortable conversations, because that can transmit a lot. So these came out of the trainings, and now's an opportunity if anyone has any sort of final comments, questions, suggested changes. Let me know if you need me to go down in the screen.
Madam Chair, can I kind of review the word create a brave and safe space. I wonder what the safe space mean. Like, is it physical, emotional, mental safety, or creating a comfortable space where everyone's input is welcome? I'm just asking for clarification from all of us, what safe mean for each one of us.
That's a great question. So I think that all that you said is important to include. I don't know how others feel. If so, then we might need to amend the wording a little bit. Okay, does anyone else want to speak?
I'd like to speak. So that's a good question. Brave and safe space. In my view, I think those two words are significant in the sense that it protects all the intersectionalities that we have. So the word brave means that it's equated with authenticity. Be authentic, be brave, express your opinion the way it's supposed to be intentional about things without fear or any repercussion. That's the way I understand it. Safe because usually we all know that when we are meeting or people are meeting around a particular topic or around the table, we have people from certainly, from all kinds of backgrounds. You have LGBTQ plus people. You have women. You have whose voices historically have been shattered, not really, respected. So you have African Americans. You have Latino. You have all kinds of people, all kinds of backgrounds. You want to make sure that they feel safe when they express themselves. So if safety is not there, bravery is not there, people feel a little bit, you may have a lot of people around the table, but they may not express because of their past, because of their experiences, because of a variety of things. That's the reason why those two words, they're powerful words. They're there, and they are, in my view, they are relevant. Because certainly, just look around, just look in this room. What people we have in this room. You have an African American man, you have a Muslim woman, you have woman from Cambodia, you have a variety of people around this room. You have white Americans, you have a lot of people around here. So those are the safeguards, in my view, for any group that is ethnic or multicultural or from different backgrounds. So that's my understanding of those two words. So they do carry a lot of meaning to me.
My understanding, and Commissioner Pish, please clarify, is not to get rid of the words. My sense is you are asking for a little bit more clarification or elaboration on the words. Is that correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
So if that's the case, Commissioner Pish, do you have any suggestions of a way to elaborate on that or clarify that for us to consider? Or does anybody else?
Yes, I wonder if we can kind of put the parenthesis, what safe mean, either physical safety or emotional, mental safety, or others, because people feel the word safe has different meaning for other people. It's like people feel like, I don't feel safe here with you. What does it mean? Physical safety or mental safety or emotional safety or others? So I just want to, maybe we can add some word to that.
What if there was, like how some of the other ones have a sub-bullet, and it said, safety is physical, emotional, and mental, and even environmental safety.
Correct,
All four.
correct.
I have a suggestion. So I would probably put an asterisk there and put a disclaimer at the bottom of the page explaining it, if that was the case.
So I want to hear from others. Do you prefer an asterisk and then a disclaimer, or a sub-bullet right under that line?
This is just from personal experience, but I think we should do a sub-bullet only because I wouldn't read the asterisks. Like, even when I'm reading papers, I'm like, the asterisks, I mean, obviously it's not important enough to put it right there, so why put it at the bottom? I think more people would just read the next bullet, just for like, out of convenience. So it's just there. I think we should put it as a sub-bullet.
Would anyone else like to weigh in on that?
I do agree with, yeah, I think sub-bullets will make more sense also
Okay.
for uniformity purposes when reading the document, and also gives it importance rather than the asterisk. That, you're right, sometimes people just skip it. Yeah.
Okay.
That-
So,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Just to make it, I guess, yeah. For the people who don't understand what asterisks mean in general, like, just to make it more accessible, like, I wouldn't know what an asterisk or a subscript is if I didn't do academic, like, reading. So it's like just for everyone to know, like, this is something you should know.
agree. So it would have a sub-bullet. Safe space refers to physical, emotional, mental, and environmental. Yes?
Yes.
Anything else on this document? And Phil, I can scroll down toward the second half if you need me to do that.
I actually have another thing under the same point that Karu is making in terms of like, what is the one thing that in this space we absolutely can't allow? For example, like, if, yes, if you're brave enough to say, like, show your authenticity, that can't include hate speech. For a lot of people, hate speech is like a part of their identity. I mean, they probably don't see it as hate speech, but for the person who's or for the people who are receiving that comment, it could be considered as hate speech. So like, maybe we should clarify what set boundaries when it comes to a space like this, and it goes for like all people in this space, not just certain people.
So this brings up the point of, and let's just see, because that could be covered under, no. So this was intended, this was created out of team building and for the board to hold these agreements and norms. Are you speaking about the board, or are you speaking about opening this up? Because I think that's a whole other topic of, is this just for our internal communication and interaction? Is this extended out into the community? And if that's the case, I feel like, we might need to have a slightly different process.
I mean, we could clarify that as to make this like a blueprint for those conversations that are going to be opened up to the public. You feel me? Like, we have that standard in between ourselves so that we remind ourselves not to say anything hurtful between us in conversation. Because sometimes when we have heated arguments about certain situations, sometimes, we'll say the wrong thing. Even though if it's between all of us and we respect each other on a certain level, that shouldn't be said in the first place, regardless of who is in the environment. So, like, it's just like a reminder to ourselves to be like, if it is something very hateful, that's something that we should rethink, because we're adults and we should say things are appropriate to say in a circumstance like that.
Chief Callahan, were you going to add anything? You sort of looked like you were. You have to put you. No? Yes. Commissioner Pish.
Madam Chair, I kind of agree with Commissioner Hosseini, even among the board, I think it's good, it's a good reminder to pay attention, not to condone any hate speech among each other. It's like no shame, no blame, just an opportunity for learning and teaching.
So do we want to add hate speech is not acceptable? Like how, let's sort of come back into like how this is going to actually look on here.
I mean, I think you said it, just, like, simply said, hate
That's-
speech is not acceptable.
Okay. And would that be its own bullet under communication?
I did just want to offer, Madam Chair, I think it goes hand in hand with creating safe space, and so it does overlap with communication. We can certainly look at this over time and discuss where it goes, but I would just like to say, I think if we're defining safe space, both
Okay.
or mental, emotional, physical, I think the hate speech goes right in there.
Okay. So then there'd be two sub-bullets under that first one. The first would be about physical, emotional, mental, environmental safety, and the second would be hate speech is not acceptable. Yes? Correct? Yes? Okay.
Hate speech wouldn't be welcomed, wouldn't be allowed or permitted in our space, especially if this is just for the commission right now. I think it goes without saying, we've all kind of internalized those values already, but if we're going to write it and spell it out, we can. And just to lay the groundwork then, as Vice Chair Husseini said, if this would then be the groundwork for what is open to the public after.
I think hate speech is not, personally, and I want to hear from us, I think hate speech is not welcome. I don't think that that's strong enough. I think it should just straight out say it's not acceptable. Or if there's some other word in between those.
Not permitted. There's like a lot we could thesaurus it, probably. Come up with a good one.
You could just say, hate speech shall not be permitted.
Prohibited.
Oh. I would not. I would say hate speech shall not be permitted. But we can certainly look into that language and what language. First of all, you know, so if we're gonna put hate speech there, we will need to define what that means. You know, just inserting that word there is not sufficient. Because people will come here, will attend the meetings, and we as well, I'm sure that if we go around, we all have a different definition of what the hate speech is. Am I correct? So I think that it needs to be defined as well, just like when Karu brought the suggestion about a brave and safe space. It will create more confusion, so it needs to be defined. So just inserting that and say shall not or will not be permitted, yeah, we can say that, but we need to define that first, what that means for the regular people that will come here and attend these meetings.
In order to get something,
Yeah.
we've been together for 2.5 years, and because we've had a lack of director, it's taken this long for us to get a vision and to get this together. So I would really like to see us get something that, whether it's this meeting or next meeting, that at least is a template that can be fluid, it can change, it can be evolved for the public, but when I hear, well, we'll just work on it, and like, we'll revisit it, that I think that that's not really the best way to go. We can reassess it, it can be revisited, but I feel like we do need to this meeting or next meeting, at least have something that's a starting point.
So I'd like to add one clarification here. First of all, we came here to discuss this document. This was not, I don't even know if this document was going to be for the regular people. This document to me is a norm for the team. So we need to depart from that principle because first of all, I was not ready for this. to make this available to the public. If we are going to make these available to the public, and these will be our norms, not just for the group, for the public, then we need to go back and revisit this document and come up with a nice draft document, a nice draft document. So this is for discussion. It may take 1 or 2 days, or maybe another session, but it's necessary for us to bring a solid document so that it becomes the regiment of this group. That's all I'm saying. So
So if this came out of our training, so this is for the HRC group norms or shared agreements. This is step one. The next step is what will come of this for the public. All I'm suggesting is, why don't we focus on completing this step, and then the next step can follow accordingly.
Madam Chair, so if we're working on this document, I would add, I like the word that Chief Bryce said, hate speech is prohibited, and then add the example of what Dr. Garcia had said about what hate speech means, so that we have something and then we can go back and work on that and bring it back to the public. Thank you.
Okay, so I thought that right now we're just getting this for the board, okay? And so what you're saying, Commissioner Pish, is that once this is set for the board, then there may be a definition of hate speech as it goes to the public.
That's not what I meant. I know this document is created for the board, so we define hate speech for all of us as the board, what it means. And after we finalize it, we're gonna share with the public. This is the board norm. That's what I meant.
And so for the board, everyone wants hate speech to be defined. I want to hear I want to understand. Is that what I'm hearing?
If I may, oh,
Go ahead, Director.
thanks. Just for the sake of really, what is this means when it comes to enforcement? Like, what happens if any of these norms are violated? Then we have to be really intentional and specific as to what hate speech is. When we were talking about safe space, for some, what is physical, what is a physical safe space or emotional? So we have to be really specific and be able to define these terms, because then we have to think about the next step, which is enforcement. What happens if someone does not abide by these rules? I'm sure we have to be honest. We have seen recent public meetings where incidents have taken place even after open law meetings have been read. But because there are specific steps as to what has been violated, what has not been in compliance with the rules and regulations. So I do agree that this is where we can start this being the norm for the board, but also what does that mean internally for the board if these norms are violated? So what does that mean? And then in order to bring it to the public. So I do agree that, fortunately, yes, we need to move on, but to make sure it's successful, we need to be really specific. Thank you.
Thank you. So who then would like to propose some definitions or some ways of enforcing? I need people to offer to step up.
Sorry, Commissioner Garcia. I think this would be great, Madam Chair. Are we talking about our working groups? This sounds like something great we could work on. I don't know if we really will get too far in our limited public meeting time. Since we've already been working on this 2.5 years, I'd hate to finish it off here live.
I'm not sure which working group that would be, but we might need to just come back to that once we discuss the working groups. So for now, What I have notes of is that under brave and safe space, there needs to be sub-bullets referring to what that safe space is, physical, emotional, mental, and environmental. That hate speech is one possible word, prohibited. I don't know if not tolerated might be another option. And then the considerations for the elaboration on hate speech, as well as how do these get enforced if we feel like one of the board members violates not only hate speech, any of these. So is that correct for a summary as of now? And then it can, once we sort of do some discussion on the working groups, we can see where this will go.
Madam Chair, may I? So I agree with what Claudia said, but I believe that this is a two-step process. One has to do with us taking the word hate speech and define it for clarity purposes. The other thing has to do with the regiment of procedure, that when somebody violates that, then you have a procedure in place in terms of what you're going to do with the person. To me, those are two different things. They're interconnected, but they're different, because you're talking about procedural. What happens if Mr. Garcia, for example, comes here and uses words that are not appropriate, that fit within that category? What's going to happen? That's a procedural thing. You know, in terms of consequence, you violated this and that. That's a separate document. They are interconnected, as I said, but they're different. Then you have the definition of what that means. One is education, the other one is making sure that whoever infringes upon it, you incur the consequence.
Yes, that's fine. I'm just giving an overview of where we're leaving this right now, that's all. The enforcement, or whatever we want to call it, can be a separate document, it can be a circle, to me, that would go to a circle. It could be, we also have to consider open meeting laws. So the group can't get together outside of a public meeting for this? Is it something that the director gets involved? So this needs a lot more consideration. So I'm just taking the notes for now and where this is going to go, next meeting and forward. Okay. So can we move on? Everyone, the summary, is that accurate? The summary from that last topic is really about the brave and safe space, to define what that is in terms of the aspects of physical, emotional, mental, environmental. That hate speech is prohibited, or some other word, synonym. We have to define hate speech. We also have to consider how to enforce if hate speech or any of these others are violated, and that might be a whole separate document because it's more procedural. And this may end up going to a working group to be able to work on it and come back to the full body. Does that sound like a reflection of what we just discussed? Okay. Okay, so next, I guess you can keep this, I'm going to share a different document. So this next document is a second draft. We began, maybe we can stop this sharing of the document for the moment, thank you. And I'm sorry that we did not have this last document we discussed and the next one translated. These are sort of more working documents, and either they will get translated once they're more finalized, or for this next document, it's really more of a behind-the-scenes to-do list kind of working document. And so since we have limited resources for translation, we sort of are trying to learn how to be more accessible and make the languages available, and at the same time know how to prioritize that. So just a little bit of context there. So this next document that I'll share is The yearly roadmap of activities, this is our second draft, so we discussed this in our last meeting, and I just want to reiterate that some of the things that are at the top. So once we have this skeleton, and this is a very fluid document, so this is, this can change year to year. It's just to try to, again, give us a little bit of direction that we have to work from, okay? Based on what we've already done, what's worked, and some other ideas that have come up in these previous meetings or in HRC trainings. So the planning, ideally, it would be nice to be more proactive, to plan a minimum of 2 months in advance so that the events or programs or whatever it is can get the, promotion out there, and we can have events be more interactive. One thing that came up last meeting was like, might we want to have a common area where we can display different awareness months and events, so that we're sort of looking at what is the best way to get word out. And in general, these are, again, this is not exclusive, this is just some samples. That the HRC might host events throughout the year to help raise awareness and provide opportunities for dialogue. Those could be documentaries, could be guest speakers for relevant topics, maybe book clubs or related programs like the Equity Challenge, community circles. And all these will be specifically determined, and they'll change, as time goes on. So what I'm going to just sort of go over what this is really. We don't want to get bogged down in the details, because that would be a working group, or it would be the director's role. It's just to sort of see, do we have covered in this January to December skeleton calendar, do we sort of have main areas mentioned, even though they might happen, we might decide this goes on this month or something else. So in review, in January 2022-23, we had the Martin Luther King Jr. event that the students had put on, which has been wonderful, and we'd like to, continue that, but maybe elaborate, have it be more in person, not pre-recorded, get more involvement. In Black History, for Black History Month, you can see, I'm not going to read every single thing here, but this past year, Senator Edwards came as a guest speaker. That was really powerful and very informative. We also, the school district created different staff profiles and student poetry and art, so that might be expanded upon. I think the board needs to consider looking at where does Juneteenth and Black History Month, how do they overlap? We've discussed considering inviting Black artists for overall artwork, is possibly displaying a slave cabin or performance of Ring Shout Wail About the racial politics of music and dance in North American slavery. There could be a book club on that. The documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, is really powerful. So those, again, they're not set in stone, they're just thoughts to have down. February is also Teen Dating Awareness Month, which got added to the calendar that's on our webpage. March is Women's History Month. Besides the banner, the school district and the HRC hosted pre-recorded interviews with those who identify as female in the community. There was an employee educational event at City Hall, so there's areas we can expand on those. March is also Disability Awareness Month, so we could coordinate with Ralph DeChico to see how we can support with any awareness there. In April 2022 and 23, we did the 21-day Racial Equity Challenge. We could really try to expand this with more planning, get more employees involved, the community involved, maybe to have other ways to connect. It's also Celebrate Diversity Month. It's Arab American Heritage Month. We already have a Ramadan banner. It's Cambodian New Year. I think we have to consider if we're going to do something for Cambodian New Year, what about other cultural New Years, just to be inclusive? So that's always a consideration. It's Autism Awareness Month, and the city has a sign. Some of these, like, I'm not sure how much, it says question mark HRC involvement, because how much, should the HRC be involved? Sexual Violence Awareness Month, we added that to the calendar. Might it be a month that there's some documentary or one of those other programs listed above the top? In May, it just lists what the awareness months are in May. So again, what would happen in May to celebrate that? Might it be a month that a guest speaker comes in or whatever? That's why there's just question marks. June, last year there was a wonderful Juneteenth celebration right on the lawn in front of the Veterans Building. And there was a Pride Month event at the end of the month, a tea dance, which was very well attended. Both of those were really great, and hopefully they are already in the works. July and August, it's summer, tough time. From mid-September to mid-October is Hispanic Heritage Month. This is something, we have a huge Hispanic community, and we've really not done anything. The city hasn't really done much, so this is an area I think that can really have some attention. October, it lists the different heritage months. Italian Heritage, there's also awareness and history around Indigenous Peoples' Day. Dawnland documentary is a great documentary about trust and reconciliation in the state of Maine. November is Native American Heritage Month. We're partnering with Strong Oak, who was our November guest speaker, so we might be able to create some events with her. In December is Universal Human Rights Month. And again, any months where there's not a lot going on might be a good month where we host a program, a guest speaker, a documentary. So all that will need to get worked out once this is on like a spreadsheet, because my sense is this would be helpful for it to be on a spreadsheet where then you can sort of track who's coordinating what. We need drummers, we need a guest speaker, we need a location to host a documentary. And this is just the skeletal structure to at least start that process. So we can acknowledge what we've already sort of done in some of this and look at what needs to be elaborated on and what more we might be able to include. So this is by no means final, but it's just a sort of a place to start to create some kind of a working spreadsheet. So does anyone have any questions or comments before this sort of maybe goes into the form? Maybe our administrative assistant, Paula, would be able to at least get it into a spreadsheet to get things started, and then it can be edited from there.
When organizing or like just thinking about an event to show to the public, does it have to be kind of like a generalized event, or can it be like needs specific? Like an example is like I would love to have I would like to host an event that surrounds like equity and equality in science, you know what I'm saying, for individuals who are interested in like STEM and mathematics. Like, what are the inequalities happening in that field for those who are interested in going into that field? Like, can it be specific like that, or should it be a lot more generalized where it talks about inequality as a whole? So that's my question.
I'll open it to the director and others. My sense is that would be completely welcome, that the racial equity challenge is intersecting with food. You're mentioning science. So I think it's actually helpful to see the threads of equity and inclusion and how it's affected within agriculture, or how it's affected within science, or how it's affected, or, whatever. So, I don't see an issue with it. Others can speak.
Yeah, absolutely. There is not an issue at all. As a matter of fact, something that we've been looking at is working with Ralph DeChico in regards to, accessibility, equity for people with disabilities. It's not just around, creating events, but taking initiatives and things such as improving signage across, City Hall and other public buildings. And is that a way of putting up an event? Maybe, who knows? Hey, let's come together. Let's say right now that finally we're recognizing the need for this and that we're taking action. So, any topic that can be in alignment with equity, inclusion, it's welcome. Yeah.
Anything else? I think the next topic about the working groups will sort of be, associated with this. So we can stop sharing this screen for now.
Madam Chair, I am also wondering if we have this plan in place every month, and I want us to make sure it's happening, not just with HRC, but also Director Korea, if the city also adapt this and supporting this to make sure all the events is happening and planning with the commissioners, so that we make sure that we share this with the public, and we want to make sure that it is happening, either the support financially or planning or guest speakers, anything that kind of promote longevity of the programs.
Correct, yeah. So that's something that we're already working on. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we'll be meeting with Charlie from Parks and Recreation, and also the mayor's office with Jackie, who is in charge of events, to finally put together this events topic together. Is who is receiving requests from events? Is it the Art and Culture Council? Is it local organizations? Is it consulates that want to do flag raising events? And it has been all over the place. It has been embraced during the last 3-4 years, 5, whatever. But now we're finally at the stage that, okay, now let's put it in one place. Now, who are the partners that are going to help us, share these events? In this case, will be the Human Rights Commission, it will be the Cultural Council, it will be, everyone else that's involved. But the main goal is to make sure there is a system in place. Like if there are large events, who needs to be involved? The fire department, the police department needs to be notified. So there are a lot of logistics that need to be considered, but ideally is to put everything in one place. And once an event is ready to be announced, we as partners, the commissions come together to share these events, and there will be across the board responsibilities. So that's what we're working on, and we hope to get that finalized soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next, the last sort of agenda item before other business, the HRC working groups. So I'd like to just say a couple of things first. For tonight, this is going to be, my sense is this is going to be a 2-meeting topic. So tonight, it's more important to talk about the actual working groups, and then we'll continue the conversation at the next meeting, because as you see when I share my screen in a moment, there's been change to the larger group. So the groups are cultural events and celebrations, and this group, one function of this group is to support the community. So if a community member needs help, they don't know like what permits to get and whatnot, the people that are on this group might be able to say, well, this is like, say, Commissioner Mukaber, who has, run the Moroccan Festival in recent years. So he's very well versed in sort of some of the procedures to be able to host an event. So one function of this group is to, help the public, and there's actually a form on our webpage that people can submit a form and request help, and this group gets informed. Another function of this group would be sort of to work closely with like that little roadmap we just went through. We just have to be careful that this working group does not become event planners. So that's sort of something to consider of, maybe there's a certain representative from this group, whoever ends up being on this group, that sits on that new committee that Director Correa mentions, that if there's a representative from HRC and a representative from disabilities and a representative from the Cultural Council and Arts and Parks and Rec and communication, et cetera, travel and tourism, maybe someone from this group sits on that, committee. Education and outreach, I think that that's pretty clear. There's plenty to do in terms of a lot of the documentaries, getting guest speakers, hearing from the public, what topics would be of interest for some dialogue. Of course, 2 members on that group are no longer on the board, so again, we'll discuss that further next month. Evaluation is really my recollection is that was really intended to not only create a survey for our meetings to get feedback, but also to evaluate our work so that we get a sense of what's working and what's not. I'd like to also mention here that Commissioner McGee has a real interest and aptitude for historical research and has taken a lot of initiative in that area. Now, we have to be careful of how many working groups we have, so do we want a separate group like that, or might this group become evaluation and research? So one function is more of a evaluating to get feedback, and the other aspect might be more of a research function. Again, I'm just throwing that out there to be discussed. Lastly, the Special Task Force for Public Mediations. This, Dr. Barrows suggested be created because a resident was repeatedly requesting a public mediation. And so this task force formed is a temporary task force to see, how we might do that. And upon getting feedback and input from the city solicitor, Paul Capizzi, we were informed that there really is not a such thing as a public mediation. And so in that case, this task force really was sort of a trial to see if we could do something. We can definitely have maybe forums where there's dialogue, where there's community circles. There are ways that we can have conversations and dialogues, but it won't be as a public mediation. So we can sort of ignore this task force. And then the question is, considering our roadmap of activities, are the 3 above enough? Should history or research, and of course, Commissioner McGee, if you think there's a better title for it, should that be a separate group or should it be combined? We have to consider each group should probably have 2 or 3 people, so it makes it really manageable to, team up and work so that it's a working group and it's less than a quorum so that people can, sort of keep things moving along, but then report back to the committee. So the question is, should the names of the groups be the same? Not so much worrying about the membership right now, but should the names of the groups be the same? Should they change at all? Should there be 3 or 4 of them? That's really, I think, for tonight, what the discussion is. We'll continue the conversation next month, but that's what I'd like to hear from tonight.
Madam Chair, as you has explained about the Special Task Force for Public Mediation, is no such thing. We should eliminating that group.
Yes, I think I said that. Yeah,
So sorry.
So just, you can ignore, it's on the screen because this is an old document, And you can see some of the members are no longer here, Lynn Alexis, Kathy Reinstein. So this is just showing what we created in May, but the last one is going to be dissolved. So that, I'm making a public notice, an announcement right now that that task force will be dissolved based on input from the city solicitor, and if anyone has any questions on that, then we will refer that to the city solicitor for him to respond further. So, sorry if that
And-
wasn't clear.
And for the other three groups, I feel that it's still relevant.
Since one of my groups got dissolved, I think the history research you mentioned, Madam Chair, would fit nicely in education and outreach, and since some of those members aren't here, I'd, maybe moving forward, be in that group.
Wait, I'm not clear. Are you saying you want to be in that group, or you want research to be part of that group?
I guess we can talk about it moving forward. I think it goes in education. Research is for education, so I don't think we need to make any changes. It could just go right in there. I guess if I need to make that move now, yes, I'd like to be put in the education and outreach.
We're not talking about members right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's going to come up at the next meeting, because there's some changes with membership.
Perfect.
So right now, I just want to get sort of the groups themselves structured, and then we can discuss. And someone might serve on more than one group, and we need to make sure there's at least 2 people in one group. So my concern, and I hear what you're saying, Commissioner McGee, my concern is the education and outreach working group, I think is really a huge, that one of all the groups, I think really is going to have a lot to do. And so I'm just concerned adding research in there. If there's a way that we could sort of create 2 groups out of that, but,
Isn't there just the issue of the members? So that's why I figured just being in education and outreach. But we could talk about that, right, at another meeting?
yes, we'll talk about the members at the next meeting. Right now, I just want to get a sense of if we should have 3 or 4 groups, considering that there might be times that we don't have as many, like right now, there aren't as many members that are actively sitting on the board. So that's why, we have to think about how many groups we're having, and having maybe like 2 per group. There could be times there's 3.
So I would suggest changing the title of the group a little bit, tweak it a little bit. Leave it, the first one, cultural events and celebrations, intact the way it is. And then change where you have education outreach. I would say education research. And then where you have outreach, you could create that, you can create a subheading, just not a subheading, but a standalone committee, which will be community outreaching. And then leave evaluation alone. So that way you have a special task out of okay. The special task force, that's eliminated. That way you have culture, events and celebrations, education, research, community outreach, and evaluation.
So what I'd like to know is what would community outreach, what exactly would they be doing, and how would that different from cultural events and celebrations? Like, these are the things we need to clarify.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Garcia, I feel that education and outreach belong together. And then research might have a standalone committee as well. All those, I can see research as part of education, too. It can be overlapping. It's my thought.
So if I'm just thinking out loud. So if education and outreach stayed as it is and research had its own topic, do people feel that, there might be a member of one group, like there could be a member from education and community outreach that's very interested in the research piece, so that person might collaborate with someone from another working group, like from the research working group? What does this side of the room feel?
I don't know, we might be getting into splitting hairs, very fine. I think it's okay to put them all under the same umbrella. I mean, if anyone really feels a need for a separate group, but I would think research, education, and outreach could go together.
Addressing to your point, when you mentioned that when it comes to like education and outreach, it starts to overlap with some of the things of the cultural and cultural events and celebrations. I think so, but to like certain extent in which the cultural events and celebrations, not only are we working with events that we already know of, but we're getting input from the community, while like education and outreach, it's like things that we haven't heard from the community, but we should consider. Like those are two different things in my opinion, where it's like we're actively looking for things that aren't being represented in the community through the education outreach, through the education and outreach working group, where in which like outreach, like we're reaching out to the community and be like, hey, what do you folks want to hear from, like what do you folks want to see? And then when it comes to cultural events and celebrations, we help facilitate the planning of such event, in which like, hey, for example, the education outreach people were just like, okay, we're gonna go into the community, we're gonna say like do a survey, for example, and just say, okay, so we're going to the community, we're hearing, we're asking people like, what do you want to see more from the community and stuff like that. If they hear from the community that they want to see, for example, Cambodian New Year, right? And someone was like, okay, I'm really interested in hearing, organizing an event for Cambodian New Year. From there, the education outreach working group will be like, okay, best people to contact for that, if you really want to plan this event, is the cultural events and celebrations, in which we have that knowledge of what permits should you get, what should you consider in your event, how to spread awareness about your event, stuff like that. So you could definitely work in conjunction. It's just that it's two sides of the same coin, in which we're just doing different things, but it's all to the same like point that we're trying to make.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think the names are going to be as important as the clarity and boundaries and what the roles are for each group and how and when they work together. So that's my sense, is that's what's going to be the key in all of it, so that you don't have two different groups doing the same thing and not really realizing that that's the case. Did anyone have anything to add in our final minutes? We haven't really come to much of a consensus, but it sounds like everyone agrees that there's going to be some overlap. And as long as, we're clear in terms of how that will happen and how it will be communicated, that's not that won't be a problem.
The more I think about it, I think the education and research, they have to go together. One cannot be disassociated from each other. Education is pretty, it's, when you talk about education, it's pretty, broad. So all documents, based on my personal experience as an educator, you have to have research out there. So I think they go together. So I cannot see, research as a standalone, subheading, in my view, or committee.
Okay, so we have a little bit, because I'm hearing, you and Commissioner McGee want research with education. Commissioner Pish feels education and outreach should stay as they are, and research should maybe be on its own. I tend to also feel, I think, even though research is part of education, at least the way I'm envisioning the education in this working group, is not the way I'm seeing. I think the research might support that, but I sort of feel like the way Commissioner Pish does. I don't know how the people on this side feel about where research should be, if it should be with education or not.
Madam Chair, I agree with Molly and Lorenzo about it being together in that group. I think it goes hand in hand also.
So it seems like we have a majority of going with education. So should community research still be there? So it's education, research, and community outreach, or should community outreach be on its own, or with cultural events and celebrations, or?
Madam Chair, if we add research into education, I think outreach should be there because it's a connection. And also, I would elaborate a little bit more when we're talking about education, community outreach and research. Are we talking academic base? Are we talking about community base, grassroots, community organizing, education, so that we are clear, so we can have our work plans and goals.
So each group, probably now that we have a little bit more information, like that skeleton for the roadmap of activities, each group might be able to at least look at that and then come up with, not that that's the final information, but at least look at that to come up with just what you said. Like, what is sort of the mission and purpose and goals of each working group? And that would be up to each group to determine. Do we all agree that for cultural events and celebrations, besides being a support for the community, if they need to know about the permits and processing, that we do need to be careful that that group does not become an event planning group, that they're sort of working with the director and with that new committee that's going to be formed around events? Yes? Okay. And is evaluation, last question, is evaluation just staying as is? And you need to put your mic on.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I feel the need to speak again. Based on my experience, I think, there are three things that go together. One is education, research, and evaluation. This is something that I have done. I feel that I'm very passionate about. These go together. The outreach part could be something that we can come up with, like a community outreach, something like that. So I strongly feel that these three elements go together. You educate, you research, you evaluate at the same time. That's what the research talks about. If we talk about scientific research, that's the way it works. So if that's the case, then that should be applicable to our group as well. Because we're talking about coherence here, so then we should live by that. Just my opinion.
Thank you for your opinion. How do others feel? I think that's going to be a very weighty working group. That's just my 2 cents. And also then, is community outreach on its own? And if that's the case, what is the role of community outreach?
I believe with community outreach, that's where like translational services are gonna come in. How are we going to spread, like whether that be making pamphlets, making flyers, making just like what resources to find on the HRC website, like a flyer that says, okay, kind of like a walkthrough of the HRC website, where to find cultural and events, where to find the calendar, where to like our meetings, just like have that more available to the public, kind of like
Almost like the 311 department?
pretty much, yeah. So something along those lines.
Well, that's an important department.
Madam Chair, also outreach, it's not just, community people, but when we're talking about research, we need to reach out to people to get the information, to get them participating. So if we're talking about evaluation, we're gonna have to reach out to people and outreach to people, right? So it's a overlapping kind of topic. And like I said again, like I said earlier, I would love to know what the goals are, because each goal will define which go with which. If we're talking academic research, scientific research, community research, and evaluation, so it has different meanings.
Okay, so because I'm being mindful of time, I don't feel like we've actually agreed on the groups unless we have. Have we agreed on cultural events and celebrations as one, education, research, and outreach is 2, and evaluation is 3? And if that's the case, then people could bring to the next meeting their ideas around clarity, boundaries, goals, purposes. Do we agree on that those would be the groups? Basically, the 4th one is dissolved, and the only thing we're doing is adding research into the 2nd one.
I suggested evaluation, to insert evaluation. So I suggested to add research and evaluation to the 2nd one, and basically have community outreach as a standalone. That's what I
Oh,
suggested.
sorry. So how do others feel about that, pending that there is some more clarity and goals for each of them?
Madam Chair, so Commissioner Garcia, so when we're talking about evaluation, it's not just one component. And if you're looking at like the, have to pay my glasses, cultural events and celebration, we want to evaluate that as well, right? So it kind of fall into all categories. The evaluation, it's not just one piece.
One of the challenges here is that there is overlap in all of these.
Right.
And so that's why, we could be going round and round, because there's always going to be an overlapping thread.
So I feel like if we don't dissect it a little bit, and we're gonna get overwhelmed. We're gonna get overwhelmed with like combining everything. And it's not just one piece and one goal we're working on. So it's like, for that, I can see like the whole commissioners will be working on education, research, and evaluation, and also outreach.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I be excused to go to the lavatory?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you may.
I'd like to clarify a few things here. One, although we see this, it sounds a lot, but I'm just saying, what is out there. So all the literature I have seen, all the paper I have seen, all the was out there always has the education, research, evaluation. When we talk about these three things, that does not mean that we're excluding things out. We're not excluding things. An element of that group, that education, research, and evaluation, can certainly evaluate the work that the cultural events and celebration group is doing. So there is many tentacles, they are interrelated, we're not separating them. The way it's there, it's basically to define, you know, what each group does so that we can be a little bit more focused. That's all. We can certainly define the elements it goes into, but basically, we're not separating anything. We are basically, you know, having these groups so that we can have a little bit more focus into, that will support our work, that's all.
Thank
Madam
you,
Chair.
Dr. Garcia. And I respectfully, even though that might be the industry standard, does not necessarily mean that that's what we need to adopt.
That's fine, I'll go with
And
that.
I'm not disagreeing, I just want to make that point. Revere is a little bit unique, and the way we go about things might be a little bit unique. Well, and my sense is I'll listen to Commissioner Pish, and then I think we should just table this topic, because it was going to be on the next meeting anyway, and it will give people more opportunity to really, you know, reflect on this so that we can finalize, or try to finalize it at the next meeting.
It's in my world of doing community-based grassroots organizing, we always have outreach, education, and evaluation, right? Those three together. So then we can separate it, who's gonna work on education, who's gonna work on outreach, who's gonna work on evaluation. So those three can have different committee, 3 different committees. All those it's together, but you can also have a subgroup working on each topics.
Listening to everyone, my sense is that I think we really need to consider what falls under research and what falls under evaluation. Because depending on how one is looking at that, might affect where it belongs. So, please, you know, I'll send this out after the meeting so that, and I'll sort of include some of the notes from the conversation so that we can revisit this and hopefully come up with whatever the new 3 or 4 would be, whether it's 3 or 4. Thank you for your comments. Any other business? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Our next scheduled meeting is the first Thursday in May. I believe that's the 2nd of May. Thank you very much.